Minonia is determined to meet the 6,000-ounce target. Since this is the latest we've ever gone, in my 20-odd years of working here, to start losing, we need more than one plan operating. After putting in more effort than anyone else and never receiving recognition, Monica Beets handed up her gold claim. She wasn't weak, so she stayed. The labor was too much, and no one thanked her, so she quit. She contributed to the development of the mind, but after giving birth, she realized what was truly important. Pay attention, because even her father, Tony Beets, began making serious errors when she left. Silently, the weight of gold is determined. Being the daughter of a mining tycoon was never all that Monica Beets was. She was the calm in an endless tempest in the Klondike's icy tundra, when days drag into nights and every permafrost creek seems like a battle. She was given control of a front-end loader at the age of 12 without any supervision, instructions, or direction. There were only forward motion, work, and results, no second chances. She grew up like that. That was what was anticipated. And she wasn't broken by that incident. She was characterized by it. But everything changed when she discovered what was underneath the ice. Our top screen has a hole in it. How awful is it? 2 runs are blocked off for me. Monica grew up with the goldfields after that day. She didn't pick up knowledge by watching others or reading instructions. There was no other option. So she learned. She unjammed the apparatus when it jammed. She guided crews when they hesitated. Monica had to establish her authority on a foundation that rarely valued tact or quiet. While her brothers assumed their duties with assurance and encouragement, she couldn't fit on the property. She carefully carved it open. Instead of doing nothing, we're actually moving closer to this 6,000-ounce objective. So it's good to be sleeing. She didn't have to demonstrate her ability to fit in. It was because of her that others did. She oversaw daily operations at Paradise Hill, supervised teams twice her age, and had a reputation for authority as well as confidence. Every ounce of gold that was washed went through the system she kept. Her thumbprint was on every choice that saved time or saved equipment. However, she carried with her every victory a promise postponed. Hard, unrelenting, and fiercely proud, Tony Beets was a force to be reckoned with. He consistently implied that Monica would eventually have her own territory to govern, a plot of land she could seize without requesting permission. That promise remained just out of grasp in every season. She never voiced any complaints. She was pressed for time. Like someone attempting to outrun disappointment, she immersed herself into the work. The Hester cut finally showed up, 3 acres of unrealized potential that are frozen solid and burdened with unsaid expectations. Already it's seeping through the dike. Take a look at that. A trickle begins, but it doesn't take long to have a river flowing. I'm happy I arrived on schedule. Tony thought the area was full of wealth that the earlier dredgers had overlooked. Monica saw it as something even more uncommon. Her father hadn't touched anything before, but now her name was attached. She threw herself wholeheartedly into the claim. Every obstinate yard of pay soil, every chain, and every hydraulic hose became personal. However, personal problems are of no concern to the Yukon. Like storms, the setbacks came. Equipment malfunctioned. The road access fell apart. She encountered unfavorable weather conditions that persisted. And yet she appeared. Her ownership was not shown on the documents. Her work and the progress that was rightfully hers were hardly ever acknowledged in the credits. She rectified failures in the icy dark, and my plant had 1,000 ounces of pure plant matter. Crews who questioned her authority were ordered by her. While others slept, she worked despite her fatigue. Not for cash or recognition, but just because it belonged to her, or she believed it to be. Until she began to believe that no matter how hard she tried, she would never be able to claim the land. However, the Yukon had yet to put her devotion to the test. Her position on the site was vacant one day. There were no send-offs or announcements, only the monotonous hum of machinery where her voice had once calmed the clamor. Fantastic. Do you imitate Evan? All of the larger rocks have fallen on our small screens, creating a hole in them. On top of that, there are large frogs. The loss of Monica was more painful than any malfunctioning equipment. Her post was unfilled. Her calm command went unanswered. The surgery went on, but a major change occurred. The expense of her hard days was not visible to the audience. She overcame her illness. While others questioned her, she took the lead. She oversaw intricate, multi-million-dollar operations while carrying family conflicts. And she did it while being supposed to be silent, smile, and perform. There was no pause button for when she needed to relax. There were just expectations when she needed help. Emotional honesty is not rewarded in the Yukon. It incentivizes outcomes. In a private moment away from the spotlight, Monica married Taylor Miles in 2018. She gave birth to their daughter in 2021. For someone who had spent her whole life dealing with explosions, floods, injuries, and failure, that one incident altered everything. She had never experienced the silence that came with holding a child. Not the quiet of serenity, not the quiet of absence. Toronto turned into a unique form of gold. It was not shiny. Neither purity nor weight were used to measure it. It provided room, time, and air. And for the first time in years, Monica could breathe without worrying about missing her aim. She was not simply leaving the Yukon. She was moving in her own direction. But it wasn't riches, land, or legacy that ultimately transformed her. It was something far more potent and much tiny. The absence was felt even by Tony, who seldom acknowledged the emotional aspect of anything. Although he didn't express it, others could tell by the way he looked at maps for longer than normal, and how frequently he inquired about numbers that Monica used to handle automatically. No one could fully duplicate what she delivered, and something had changed. More than anyone could have predicted, she fled. In the Yukon, the Beets name carried weight not merely in gold ounces or landed, but in the kind of reputation that caused men to pause before speaking as the empire that forgot its heart. The father, Tony Beets, had turned a little mining company into a full-fledged empire, based on equal parts obsession and intimidation. His voice sounded like gospel across walkie-talkies. He towered over Paradise Hill like a fully charged excavator. Behind the bluster and growl, however, was a machine too large for one person to control. It had also depended on Monica to prevent it from toppling over for years. Monica shaped the system, but Tony's magnetism shaped the narrative. She didn't use a theatrical touch. It was a strategic move. From behind grease guns, clipboards, and maps no one else cared to read, she rebalanced the entire business. Time was saved by her choices. Her intuition saved her money. Morale was saved by her presence. Nevertheless, she was handled like a spare part by the machine, replaceable but useful. Cracks appeared in the family business as it grew. No longer was Paradise Hill merely a claim. It was an environment based on unrealistic expectations, television scheduling, and pressure. The strain behind Monica's eyes when another hydraulic system broke in the middle of her shift was not captured on camera. But the sparks and the shouting were. The paperwork she finished late at night, and the realization that, while running a burgeoning enterprise, was not captured on camera. Monica, hello. What have you got? Are you down? Yes. The tailings conveyor made the decision to emit smoke. Yes. You folks realize what was wrong with it then. It's probably a pulley. She was still not considered one of its creators. No official boardroom existed, and there were no clearly defined leadership positions or job titles. The hierarchy of who shouted loudest merged into family dynamics. Monica acted rather than yelling, and that frequently meant being ignored in a society where strong voices and inflated egos rule. She felt as though a door had finally creaked open when the Hester cut was given to her. Just enough to let her in, but not completely. The claim's fingerprints were on the plan from the beginning for the first time. She planned equipment schedules, surveyed the drainage, and conducted terrain scouting. It was never ceremonial. It was a lot of labor. The operation never received the recognition she hoped the land would provide. Nature, however, is not emotional. Good intentions are not rewarded by it. At the beginning of the season, storms arrived. The thawing of the ground was not complete. At the most inconvenient times, the excavators malfunctioned. The road became soup as it entered and exited the cut. Monica persevered through every obstacle, missed goal, and unsuccessful phase. The triumph weighed heavily on her chest. When the pay dirt finally started to flow, she didn't desire credit because no one gave it to her. The Beets family was marketed by Discovery Channel as a show. The boys are Tony's faithful heirs, and Tony is the wild king. The formula did not apply to Monica. She didn't make enough noise. She didn't hurl objects. When machinery malfunctioned, she didn't curse at them. She simply corrected them. She thus became a silent character on the periphery of the frame, as her father's fame increased, and the show's viewership rose. Monica was already overburdened when she wed Taylor Miles. Organizing a wedding during mining season required balancing fuel delivery, equipment orders, and family conflicts. Nevertheless, she allowed for happiness. She grinned for pictures. She carried the weight of her previous life with her as she entered a new one. Her thoughts were half in the Yukon, nevertheless, even as she stood at the altar. Years of survival programming do just that. Your peace is divided by them. Something changed when her daughter was born 3 years later. Not outwardly, not dramatically, but inwardly. For the first time in her life, Monica experienced a sense of accountability that had nothing to do with output or financial gain. It was not about machine uptime, forecasts, or ounces. It was about showing up, being present, and remaining. There is no silence in the Yukon. It requires movement. However, Toronto provided wealth and tranquility away from the din of engines in the chilly metal air. Monica's internal equation shifted when she held her daughter in the gentle morning light. All of a sudden, mining math stopped adding up. It felt like debt now, instead of pride. 5,000 ounces of gold on Paradise Hill is a significant amount. It's really easy, really. More slewing, more gold, more dirt. Paradise Hill, meanwhile, adjusted clumsily and slowly. The crew divided up the work. Tony added volume and muscle to fill in the voids. Kevin put more effort into mechanics than ever before, yet his coordination worsened. Monica used to plan seamless transitions, but now they are awkward. Delays in maintenance mounted. Deadlines were missed. Not disastrously, but distinctly. The kind of inefficiencies with no obvious cause that caused tension. Filming for the show continued. The empire continued to expand. However, the operation's spirit felt lighter, and not in a positive sense. Nobody spoke much within the Beets family. They did it that way. However, the questions lingered. Would she return? Would she be persuaded? Had a broken item that was unfixable. They made no direct inquiries. The fact that Tony pondered longer over site maps, or that Kevin began asking things that Monica used to answer, without being asked, were signs that they needed her, even though they didn't acknowledge it. Viewers even took note. Online discussion boards were ablaze with conjecture. Monica was where? Why didn't she appear in the most recent episode? Her energy grounded the entire operation, and fans missed her for balance, confidence, and balance rather than drama. He will drill holes in the seal and fasten the rubber, steel, and other components to this plate. Back in Toronto, Monica remained silent. Simply space, simply life, without pronouncements or statements. Reconstructing herself, raising a child, and recalling what it was like to go to sleep without being interrupted by distant machinery. No dawn alarms, no cold, just softly unfolding mornings. However, it is difficult to shed the burden of heritage. Her ancestry was Paradise Hill. She embodied the beat, the terrain, and the machineries. On some nights, memories of the old existence broke the quiet in the new one. Just echoes, no regrets. She didn't leave out of rebellion. Self-preservation was the reason. Although things didn't collapse, they didn't function as well. When gold is overshadowed by quiet, Monica Beets chose not to protest by leaving the Yukon. She didn't smash doors, demand explanations, or storm out. She just took a step back. The way winter abruptly gives way to spring, or how mountains vanish behind clouds. She was there one day, leading teams, lubricating equipment, and resolving issues before anybody else noticed. She wasn't the following day, just a systemic pause, no major announcement or declaration. And like a broken piece of equipment that no one could fix, it reverberated across the empire. To the outside world, she was still Tony Beets' daughter, a bit player in a dynasty where the brothers ran the rigs. The father made the decisions, and Monica filled the void. However, such was never the case. The reality was easier and far more awkward. The foundation was her, not ostentatious or noisy, but essential. Her exit threw the Beets operation off balance, but it didn't break it. There is no grace in the Yukon. Silence and sacrifice are not rewarded by it. It puts loyalty to the ultimate test. It takes grit, timing, and perseverance to survive. Monica possessed all three. Grit, however, does not save you from burnout. When you're waiting for components that won't arrive for 3 more days at midnight, alone in a trailer, stubbornness doesn't make you feel good. Furthermore, when promises are made with no intention of keeping them, timing is irrelevant. Even if her departure wasn't very noteworthy, it had the same effect as taking a bearing out of a machine that was still operating at full speed. It was only a temporary solution, but maybe it will last. We can at least get going now. And, well, hopefully it does. The system stumbled. Something changed in the energy. What had been confident and smooth started to seem fragile, and nobody seemed to have the means to fix it. Tony remained silent about it. He continued to plan and move, but the signals were obvious to those closest to him. He paused longer but yelled more. He had less faith but needed results. Something seemed to have been broken. The alignment of certain inner gears was knocked out. After more than 10 years as his right hand, his daughter was no longer with him. Not because she didn't enjoy her job, but rather because love isn't enough to keep you going indefinitely. Even the supporters took notice. Her absence became more than a footnote in forum posts and episode summaries. The change in tone and the absence of a spark, not drama or excitement, but balance, were described by viewers. The woman who had silently kept things moving was no longer present to steer things in the right direction, and that made the show seem colder. And what followed would show how much the Empire had relied on her keeping quiet. But Monica wasn't attempting to make a statement in Toronto. She wasn't reading the comments or watching the programs. She had a child to raise. She was re-establishing her identity. She was discovering what it was like to live without ounces of pressure. No teams needed to be gathered. No forecasts needed to be met. And no land needed to thaw. Her time was her own for the first time in her life. However, the past does not vanish. It remains in scars, memories, and the still calm minutes following a long day. When your mind continues to look for safety hazards, and your body continues to hear the sound of excavators. She had been forged in the furnace of Paradise Hill, but it had also been her home. Additionally, you can be hollowed out by the same fire that molds you. The extent of that fracture was unknown to those around her. It must have seemed unimaginable to them to leave a legacy worth millions of dollars. But ghosts have always accompanied gold. Every ounce that is extracted from the earth bears the burden of decisions taken, time wasted, and sacrifices overlooked. No one knew that better than Monica. She lived a life outside mining. She took it in. She carried the burden of being a woman in a world dominated by men, where one's competence was often questioned. Without letting anything break, she carried the unsaid weight of representing herself, her family, the cast, and the show. She was carrying more than just tools on her shoulders. They have a legacy, and it got too heavy. The lure of the North persisted even as she established a new life. It was a deeper, quieter pulse rather than a siren song. Like extensions of her own body, a piece of her remains bound to the ice-choked waterways, the dirt roads, and the equipment she used to control. It wasn't something she had abandoned. All she had discovered was that being needed did not equate to being respected. We will be able to run the dirt more quickly if we remove all of this load. And we can start earning money here sooner rather than later if we can get this dirt under control. The regular routine resumed at Paradise Hill. Workers came and went. Broken machines were fixed. They weighed, processed, and transported pay dirt. The system worked, but it wasn't the same. Coordination faltered. Morale faltered. Kevin tried his best to fill in the blanks. The rhythm was broken as Tony immersed himself deeper into operations. Instead of purring, the machine clanked as it spun. The hush spread within the Beets household. No formal attempts were made to bring her back. No requests were made. And no apologies were offered. Just silence, an empty room. No one spoke what they all understood, whether it was pride, fear, or the Beets' practice of never acknowledging suffering. They had been struggling without Monica, who had been crucial. Supporters wished for a comeback. Headlines were fed by speculation, but Monica remained silent, not out of animosity, but out of peace. She wasn't in charge of the next fire, the next repair, or the next shift change for the first time. The family operation had been so integral to her identity that leaving it seemed like chopping off a piece of her. However, that area started to mend as the months went by. The legacy still pulled. Growing up, her kid would understand that her mother had influenced a portion of the Yukon, that her name was an important part of one of the most famous mining enterprises in North America, not just a line in a credits reel. And that youngster may eventually inquire as to why her mother left. It will be on her terms if she comes back, as a leader, an equal, someone whose worth no longer needs to be justified, not as a supporting character or the trustworthy extra pair of hands. And it will also be a statement if she doesn't come back, one made for clarity, not protest. Standing, breathing, and moving on are some of it. And sometimes letting go of what once defined a person is the bravest thing they can do. It doesn't fit anymore, not because it wasn't real. Monica Beets remained in her position. She took a step toward her own identity, into a life where she didn't have to give up all to simply remain in the room. She left gold behind. However, was she ever truly deserving of the empire? Leave a comment below with your opinions. For more, remember to hit like and subscribe.